Quiet, please.
Listening to the DIY show. Tonight we have a great lineup. We're talking all about making your own music, DIY music, whatever you can think about music and rock and roll, we have it. We've got a great lineup tonight of guests. Well, we also still have, everybody knows Tony.
Can't get rid of me. Hello, everyone.
How you been up there in the Great Wild North?
Cold, man, cold. I live up at elevation, and last week we were at -14. We're balmy 32 degrees right now, and about 60-mile-an-hour winds at my place. So I'm at the office now. We'll finish up this show, and then I'll go deal with downed trees, which I turn into firewood. So that's some DIY stuff on its own.
All right, and tonight as our special guests, we've got Peter Head and Joe Morgan from Pitchfork Militia. How you doing, guys?
Good, how are you?
We're doing great. Glad to have you. We also have Aaron Carey, also known as Pipeline Audio. He's engineered audio for bands such as Dokken, Megadeth, and the Gin Blossoms. How you doing?
Aloha.
Yeah.
I don't know. Good. That's the extent of my Hawaiian knowledge right there.
Aaron has the advantage of being in the only location in the United States that's warm right now. Which island are you on, Aaron?
I'm on Oahu. I'm in Kailua on the windward side.
Now, most of everybody who knows you on the internet knows you more as Pipeline. So you okay with me calling you Pipe?
Yes, that's fine. That's usually how it goes, even in real life. It's really weird.
Real life.
All right, gentlemen. A lot of people, the music industry has changed dramatically. Back in the 80s, the only way that you were able to make your own music was you had to have a studio or access to a studio. You had to have connections. Pipe, you helped pioneer some of this stuff with a digital audio workstation that has really changed the industry, Reaper. How did things like that change music and how people can do their own or get their own start?
You know how many times it's been quoted, right? The good thing about the democratization of the recording industry is that anybody can make an album, and the bad part is that anybody can make an album, right? There's nothing to separate the wheat from the chaff anymore. But at least price isn't really going to be a barrier from a really great band that needs to be heard. Not so much as it used to be, anyway.
Now, would that be price paid by the artist, or?
Well, since this is a DIY show, I assume these artists would be recording themselves. So
sure,
it really doesn't take much, beyond your regular computer and a decent sound card and a couple mics. And you guys probably had some DIY shows on building mics, so this place is not. I mean, I remember, we would rent out our room at Vintage for $2,500 a day. No engineer, no producer. That's just the cost of the room, and that would buy you, that one day would buy you a really nice setup.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Peter and Joe, what kind of changes have you guys seen? You guys have been as a band for a long time. I see in '95 that you've actually been together as Pitchfork Militia. Mm-hmm. How has some of the changes made it easier for you guys?
Well, you want to field that one? Well, I mean, it's the whole process is so much more relaxing. You book studio time. You're trying to do 12, 15 songs in a weekend. More than 3 takes. You're like, we got to just deal with it and move on. Right. This way, we have our own setup. We're just basically in our garage where we practice, set some mics up, and record our rehearsals. And at the end of every song, we have our little signal where it thumbs up. Like all the way up is, definite take. So it might be a keeper, or this is like, well, if somebody else had a great take, I'll consider keeping it. If, below 9 o'clock, it's a scrap, whatever. But we'll end up in the course of a project doing 20 takes of every song we're setting out to record. So we're pretty sure we're getting the best take at least.
And it's much more fun.
Yeah, definitely.
It's been a lot more fun, and you get much better takes.
Oh, that's important. That lower stress level really pays off then.
Yeah, you can really feel. It's a palpable difference that you can. The first recordings we did, you can really hear the uptightness.
Yeah.
In the vocals, even in the tension of the music, which our music is somewhat tense to begin with, so it doesn't really matter. Faster the better, that type of thing.
Yeah.
One of the things I've noticed in a lot of bands out there that are getting their start, or smaller bands, you actually now have the ability to record really good audio when you're live at a location. Pipe, you actually at one point were trying to run a full band through Reaper?
Yeah, I've been doing that with, our school has a little kid rock band called the Random Weirdos, and that's all I have, let's see. I try to be really gear agnostic, but I'll tell you what I'm using right now. It's a regular Windows computer, a Motu 896, and a pair of Mackie Thumps and a pair of Roland AC60s for monitors. There's no guitar amps or anything. I switch all the clean and distortion from my laptop that's controlling the other computer, just using VNC. So I've got all my recording stuff right there. The only thing I have to make sure is I don't use any latent plugins, which I have very few of anyway, so I don't use them live. Works great. I get the sound that I expected at any volume I want, because we're using electronic drums, and I can use the even slate drum samples or to be gear agnostic, whatever drum samples you want to use. But that's you can get it down to a level where people can actually talk while they're watching the band, and the bar's happy, everybody's happy, and you've got studio control over it. So it works great for me. I love that.
Do you see any latency introduced by using VNC, or is it quick like?
It's pretty quick. The kids do a cover of Song 2 by Blur, the Woo-Hoo song.
Yeah.
And that has to switch from clean to distortion, and it's within a drum beat. It's never really that bad, but I could imagine it is a little bit scary not to have your hands on physical faders and stuff, but as long as you set your Reaper auto mute levels low enough, it's not too bad.
Okay.
There's been a lot of teething pains, but it's not so bad anymore.
But that's a dramatic change, because most bands, you need like you said, you need a mixing board, you need everything else. Are you even doing the effects pedals for them through Reaper?
Yeah, and so they have all these different chains. We use the mute groups so that it switches from one input to another. So I'm probably doing it in a very inefficient way, but it's not taking up much. So yeah, all their guitar effects or vocal effects, everything. The amplifier, speaker simulators, all coming out of a pair of Mackie Thumps, like little powered speakers. It's not having your hands on physical faders, though. Like I said, it was scary at first, but not so much anymore.
Peter and Joe, what have you guys changed? You guys play live. You used to have to carry a whole large amount of gear. Plus, did you guys actually have to have an audio guy working with you?
We never have. We've always been, just doing it ourselves. The equipment really hasn't changed much in the 20 years. I've gotten a better drum set.
It's still the big pile of crap we always take.
Yeah.
Hey, you forgot to say big heavy pile of crap.
Yep. We did a live recording once where we booked a bar. Was it 2 shows over 2 weeks that we did it?
Yeah.
And we actually had a guy who we had rented studio time, and on previous projects that we recorded a few projects with him, and he came in with his gear, and he recorded us live. Where everything, was multi-tracked. Other than that, we've never tried to, really capture a live gig other than like a guy with a camcorder or whatnot with, terrible audio. So that really hasn't changed at all. And we pretty much just focus on giving the crowd the best show, and that's about it.
Well, when we record, it's basically catching a live recording,
right,
and then with pretty minimal overdubs, scratch track on the vocals, that type of thing.
We're lucky with our setup that all you got to do is just hit record, because everything's armed in order to get the monitoring anyway, so it doesn't change anything to record, and then you can tell the kids, that's where you messed up, later on.
So this is a good introduction to how things were, how things are, and how things have changed. If someone was asking you guys for some advice of how they can get started, let's say it's a one-man band. I've seen, there's several of those out there that plays multiple instruments but can record himself. Where do you guys suggest that someone start looking, how to get started?
In terms of gear or like software or technique or?
Yes.
Well, yes. Pretty much everything, but let's start with like something simple, like just technique.
Practice your instrument every day.
Yep. And YouTube is your friend. Absolutely. I mean, pretty much, what we've learned, my method of learning pretty much anything is trial and error. That's pretty much the only way I do pick stuff up. So that's been a lot of what we've done. Like, I spent hundreds of hours sort of pre-mixing our last project because I was teaching myself how to do it, basically. And that's how long it took before I came up with anything that I was happy with, and before I even let the other guys hear, So, but a lot of that time between that, downtime at work and whatnot, there I am watching YouTube, watching Dave Pensato videos and figuring, getting his tips on how to mix and using plugins and stuff like that. So, and especially if you're just one guy doing your instruments separately, you're going to save money on mics for one thing, so that's good. And from my experience, you don't need to spend hundreds, multiple hundreds or thousands of dollars on mics to get a good recording. Particularly, if you're doing rock or something like that. I guess if you have if you play a Stradivarius and you're trying to get a good clean recording, that's a different story. But just trying to record a Telecaster through a Fender Twin, we have I don't know, what's it, $300 Rode mic? I think it's Rode. I'm not even sure that's how you pronounce it. RODE. One of you guys could probably help me out on that. But that gives us great results. We're happy with that. We just put that right into the the box going into the computer. And the interfaces we've spent total. We just had an old Motu 828 that I bought on eBay used years ago. Just died on us when we were first starting our current project. So we replaced that with a Behringer FCA 1616, which is the FireWire interface. It's got 4 XLRs and also 4 quarter-inch inputs, and it has ADAT in and out. So we got a Behringer ADA 8000, I think, which has 8 XLR inputs and a ADAT out, so we can do up to 16 tracks live, which is more than we need. As a band, I think we're only doing 10 tracks live. That's including the scratch vocal, which we don't keep. So and on top of that, we have some SM57s, a couple of decent Sennheisers. I didn't go for those classic Tom mics. I forget what model they're called, but they're like $400 or $500. Can't afford them, but they're good mics. We got a mic on every drum at least, and a couple overheads, and a mic on the bass and the guitar. And we're doing it all ourselves, and loving it.
It's awesome. Hey, Pipe, what kind of advice would you have for anybody starting out?
Well, I was mentored and taught to be a real gear snob, and until I struck out on my own and really started learning critical thinking, I thought I still needed to spend bajillions on microphones and mic preamps and stuff, but nowadays you'll see pictures of me standing in front of a rack of really expensive gear using a Behringer mic preamp. So
Okay.
So.
Oh, you use Behringer too? That's reassuring.
Yeah, no, I love. I think there's some Tommy Gibbons, the Coma Compound pictures where we've got every mic preamp in the world and we're using these Behringer things. So I don't want people to worry too much about gear, but what I really think you really need to learn is how to use the soldering iron. That makes everybody's life around you easier. You become an important person to everybody around you, and you pay a lot less for stuff. And
you've warmed my heart. That's the kind of thing I want to hear on the DIY show, man.
Well, I got in where I ended up becoming an intern at a place I really wanted because I had grown up in Hawaii where there's like no gear, and so you had to learn how to fix everything and make everything work for forever. And when this intern position opened up at the recording studio, everybody brought these albums that they said they mixed. I just brought my soldering iron, and they took me to the head of the line and told everybody else to go home. So, tell you, learn your soldering iron.
Wow, that's super cool.
Hey, we have John here. John Grizwald from Iron Angel Forge. He is not a stranger to the show. He was in on the metalworking and what was it, leatherworking, John?
I don't think I was in on that one.
Oh, okay. Well, we were just talking about someone who's trying to get started. What tips would you give them? Someone trying to get started in recording their own or on their own?
I've been listening while I get the machine set up, and I'm going to defer to Pipe and the other guys on this one because they're the guys I learned from. I mean, all this stuff sitting behind me is their fault. The big modded amp behind me started out life as a little PV Envoy that I rebuilt, completely. My guitar is a complete rebuild and stuff, and basically I just, like they said, get on YouTube and start learning how to do things and mod it. Get the soldering iron out and take it apart.
Now that's a great point, an awesome way of getting into this. A lot of people think that, oh, I'm going to be rock and roll, I want to record, well, I have to buy everything that I need. And even large bands had their own custom items. What was it? Big band of the '80s. Was it Boston? One of the guys there was an engineer, and he made his own effects pedals.
Yeah.
What is a good part of doing your own electronics or your own mods? Does that give you your own sound?
I'm going to say yes because it did for me.
Yeah,
and not to mention how much have I saved? How much have I saved for not having to go, get somebody to, when a jack fails? That's $25 a repair shop. You pick up the soldering iron, and 15 minutes later, you got a couple of nice burns, and it's fixed.
Mm-hmm.
Gonna come up on screen or not? I've got the modded to snot Dean sitting here, so I don't know if that'll show or not.
Was that a Vendetta? What is that?
Yeah, it started out as a $50 pawn shop Vendetta that got modded to death, and I gotta tell you, I've played. Go to the music store and play everything, and after a little bit of DIY on it, that thing will keep up with anything in stock.
I have this 16-year-old super shredder girl taking lessons. She's just $100 Dean Vendetta, and I defy anybody on any guitar. Like if she could do it on that thing, I don't care. I really try and stay away from spending too much on junk.
Hey, Peter and Joe, I noticed that you guys have.
We've gotten to a point. Sorry.
There you go. Go ahead, John. Go ahead.
We've gotten to a point where there's so much really decent quality basic stuff to spend. So, yeah, Joe, I'd love to see your stuff. What do you got?
Who, me? Pete's the guy who makes his own instruments. So go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I make little guitars, little fretless 3-string guitars out of lunch boxes rather than cigar boxes. And, suitcases and briefcases and gas cans and stuff like that. anything I can find. Everything's repurposed. Even the wood, I find the wood from somewhere, you know, people's sheds and attics. So, kind of fanatic about repurposing.
Well, and do you want to take this as an opportunity to tell people where they could find this? Because, I mean, I'm looking at your gallery right now, Pete, and it's amazing. I see you've got kalimbas in here and guitars and some that look like banjos, the whole shebang.
Yep. Well, you can see them on peterheadhimself.com. And there's a picture gallery, and then you'd have to contact me on whether to purchase or not. It's a lot of them have been sold, so you'd have to ask, you know, which, if they're still around. But I got a whole pile of them that haven't been added to the picture list. I'm still cranking them out. My goal was to try and make 100 guitars and 100 kalimbas. So.
Oh wow!
I think I've come close to it.
Are you doing your own fretboard?
I've done a few with like little brads. I clip the point and the head off a nail, and file a little groove there and glue them in. But I truly prefer a fretless. If I put the action really low, you can really play them. Like you kind of have to get used to the spacing, like a violin or a fretless bass or anything. But they really do play well. And
I'm the opposite. All my guitars are scallops, so.
Oh yeah.
With really tall frets on top of that.
Right.
I guess I'm the guy in the middle. I just run a stock fretboard.
Different strokes, folks.
But for DIY guys, I mean, there's a lot of places you can get a fretboard, you know, pre-cut if you need to. Yeah. But you know, yeah, I agree. And those cigar boxes are nice. Those are really nice instruments, man. Nice job.
Yeah, it's a rising phenomenon. Seems to be back in popularity and rising. I've seen a couple of bands fronted by a cigar box guitar.
I built one. I'll tell you, if you can get your hands on a kid's coffin, it makes the best upright bass ever.
Yeah. I'll just make one, right?
Yeah, they're not bad, but we've got a coffin factory north of me here, so I got lucky once, you know. Wow. Scratch and dent coffins aren't expensive.
Right.
Yeah, it's not like the kid needs it anymore after he's buried, right?
Well, yeah, that too.
It's always only a matter of time before it gets weird around here.
So my next project is I've got a couple of salvaged regular necks from guitars and mandolins and basses, and I'm gonna make the as primitive a double neck as I can possibly make that still works, but it's gonna be I'm gonna try and like the pick guard out of rusty sheet metal, stuff like that. It's gonna be about as third world as you can imagine. That's my next project. Hasn't started yet.
That's cool. So Pete, we've got you obviously on the hardware end of the DIY music scene, and then Aaron, we've got you on the software end. You know, it's amazing to me that you guys can approach this from such different angles, but still be producing, you know, amazing results.
Yep.
I want to throw a Pipeline out here on this one though. He put up a little video on making an electric ukulele with a piezo, making your own piezo pickups and stuff. It's pretty handy for DIY guys.
$2 or something. It also works as drum triggers. Great as drum triggers.
Huh. Yeah.
It's just a door buzzer, but it works awesome.
Wow.
I hot glue gun them to all the drums, and I just hot glue gun them on the inside of the ukuleles and whatever. You know, you're out $2 and whatever the cost of the connector, but everything's electric now.
Yep.
And because I'm a lazy bastard and don't feel like controlling the lights, we use them to control lights too. There's a pad that, you know, when we get a new drummer, the drummer hits for firing the rood lights. So, you know, you can use them for a lot of stuff.
Oh, wow.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah,
I'm doing like 6 people's jobs, so everything that gets easier is better. You know.
Yeah.
John's still trying to replace his drummer with a compressor head. If any of you guys have seen those guys, where they have the large steam-powered robot that's a drummer and a guitar.
See, I want a fire-powered robot, though.
So we've covered some DIY instruments and your equipment. Now we've got, you can take just any computer and record and master your audio. Have you guys noticed whether is it easier now to get your music out to the world compared to previously? Peter and Joe, you guys have a lot of discography out there. What have you seen many changes that way since the 90s?
Well, it's come a long ways from please send me a check and I'll mail you a cassette tape.
Mhm.
That's one department where we've totally fallen down, though. It's like, we're getting old and there's just so many hours in the day. It's like I keep every day. It's like, yeah, get your stuff on iTunes. Where stuff is not on iTunes.
Nope.
It's just one of those things. Like, next vacation I'm going to spend some time putting our music up on iTunes.
Oh, don't apologize. Here's my whole thing. My thing was always to document everything I do and try to make CDs. I've put out 38 CDs in my CD making life, which has probably started around 2000, and none of them were perfect, but I've had a heck of a lot of fun, and
That's enough, man.
I drag them around to my shows and I sell them out of a suitcase, and that's my whole prerogative, is to make another one, and we're working on a double CD right now, so someday he'll find the time to put them on YouTunes or whatever it is, and people can see it. But right now, you got to find me and come to one of our shows to get anything.
Just taking a sonic picture of that moment of your life is important. It's something you'll never get back.
We go into the merchandise pretty good too. We've had Pitchfork Militia sheets and pillowcases and monogram cigars, and we've done it all, and
Wait. How'd you get monogram cigars? That's cool.
we just made our own little bands and slipped off the bands and got like boxes of generic Nicaraguan cigars that were pretty good, for $1 a piece. So we put our own bands on them, and we gave them away.
Now that's some DIY promo right there.
We gave them away.
So with the schools pipeline, what have you mastered any discs, or have any of the kids that you've done work with, have they tried releasing an album yet?
We have little things that we record from time to time. Ever since I moved back to Hawaii, I haven't been doing much in the recording so much. I mean, the education has actually taken over so much. I never expected it. But we do have like a 4-song demo thing that they did, but yeah, not so much. But I wanted to say in response to your question earlier about getting music out there, it's way easier to get music out there now. But the trouble is getting anybody to hear it, because there's just so much out there. There's nothing to separate the wheat from the chaff, except for maybe a website that you trust or something. But at least you can get it out there.
So I'd look at that as like the signal to noise ratio there, and what do you do to get past that? How is that dealt with? What advice do you have for artists?
Well, one of the easiest ways is to get somebody to put something on YouTube. Just have somebody film a song that you're playing live, and if the first bunch of them we put up there, the audio was getting squashed.
Mm-hmm.
But the audio on videotape things has gotten better. So the last few actually has a decent sound.
Okay.
That's one way. You're right there on YouTube. They just punch your band name in and it comes up. So
how do you promote it then? How do you get people to find you by your band name if they've never heard of you?
Well, just word of mouth.
Sure. So that hasn't changed over the years then.
Sure.
Right. Probably more important.
Yeah, I mean, there's no payola deal now.
I just actually read a transcript of a keynote address that Steve Albini gave at one of the events pretty recently, and it was brilliant. It's worth. I shared it on my Facebook page. If you guys want to look me up on Facebook and friend me, I don't remember what the link was, but it's a great address. It was worth reading.
I hope it's not the transcript of the MTSU speech.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Ah. Okay.
All right, enlighten us.
No. Man, I so disagree with Steve Albini on what he says versus what he does when it comes to him. You know, it drives me nuts. I've seen people call him out on it before and cheered a little bit, but at the same time, I really like Steve Albini, so it's hard. That speech hurt. I watched the whole thing and I'm like, oh my God, is this really Steve Albini talking? But yeah, it was painful.
Maybe it's not the same speech. What specifically did he say that you took issue with?
He talks about how hands off he is and how he. Oh yeah, man, it was how dangerous it is for us engineers to stick our noses in the band's business. And wait a second, I've heard 20 different bands come exactly out with the Steve Albini sound. So don't tell me there's not something going on there.
Yeah, I'm sure PJ Harvey would disagree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another possible way DIY to get your music out there is get to know some independent filmmakers.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can get your stuff in a couple of little indie films that get played around the country in different film festivals and things like that, that's a good way to get known.
Yeah.
Sure,
Yeah. My other hobby is freestyle BMX, and we tend to get unknown bands in whatever videos we're putting out, BMX videos, or get them on companies, extreme sports videos, whatever. Man, GoPro is out there looking for people right now.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah,
I can't even tell you how many different bands I learned of similar. I grew up in the hills here in Colorado and watching like little weird indie snowboarding flicks, and there were a lot of great bands that I got turned on to that way, and it's probably cost me a lot as far as just introducing me to that punk rock scene and the trouble that came along with it, but I survived, so it's worth it.
Yeah, we have a local biking group that likes to ride their mountain bikes at night, and they do snow riding, and they've used Pitchfork Militia music for their videos before, and we live in the Catskill Mountains, so they're all crazy mountain kids.
That brings up another thing that just comes to mind is how do you guys license stuff like that? Is it sort of public domain or Creative Commons, or do you try and hold on to your all rights reserved? How do you guys look at those kind of issues?
Well, copyright used to be an elaborate thing where you sent in you filled out a form and you sent it in with some money and a tape, and they stored it in the Library of Congress. But I think it was like 1987 or something. No, it must have been in the 90s, 97 maybe, that they changed it, and they said all you really have to do to copyright your music is to set it in media and put a date on it. And that holds up as well as trying to search for your tape in the Library of Congress. But I really don't know if that's true.
97.
I don't really know if that's true, but I write the date on everything we do. So I'm not sure if we'll be going to court over it or not.
I always wanted to see some court case where somebody would actually go through all the Form SRs of the Library of Congress and find a cassette tape and pull it out in court. Like, is the cassette even there? I mean, I think that stuff just goes in the garbage. They probably just
And you had to pay them $10 an hour to search for it back then. I remember that.
I don't believe that any government anywhere on the planet protects intellectual property at this point. So you have to find alternative ways of keeping your brand your brand. I mean, no matter what it is that you make. They're even pirating hardware now, so it's not like nothing's safe. So I don't know what the new business model is, but I know what it ain't,
The other side of that actually is kind of funny. Tim can attest to this one. We put up one of our videos, and BMG or one of those companies tried to lay a copyright infringement claim for our music. So that was kind of funny. Tim could elaborate on that one.
No, I did enough research on it. I've been an amateur videographer for a couple of decades, and I already knew what to do when it came about. I shot and produced a music video for Incantations, John's band, and we put it on YouTube. And what was it? It was less than 5 days.
No, it was like the first day, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was insanely fast that it was suddenly flagged for copyright violation owned by BMG. And I just started laughing because I'm going, there's not a chance this isn't like anything else. So all I did was, you can go and find a boilerplate online, and I just did it in contested, which basically I asked for them to deliver proof that they owned that, and they backed down within 7 days. But they have, from what I can tell, it wasn't a person that did it. They actually have software trolling YouTube, looking for anything with music in it, and then tries to match it to known algorithms, and will flag actually quite a bit. Granted, there is so much copyright violation all over YouTube, it's not funny. But the interesting part is that, you know, somebody who's got something very unique can get flagged as belonging to Sony, BMG, ASCAP. It'll still happen. And a smaller band that doesn't have any experience or anybody who knows how to deal with it, I can imagine how frustrating that would be. All of your stuff just got knocked off of YouTube, which is the only place that you have for fans to see it. What do you do? I still
think we
lucky.
should have sued them. I think we should have, you know, basically took the RIA's, you know, go after everybody bullshit and turned it around and went right back after them. You owe us $4.7 million for trying to infringe on our stuff. Why not,
Yeah,
right?
Well, they backed down immediately.
That's the way a small band could actually do really well.
That sounds like
That's a lot of t-shirts, man.
John, that sounds like the strike up a war with the United States and lose way of making money.
Well, yeah.
I spent a lot of time
definitely
on
something that DIY people. Go ahead, Pipe.
I spent a lot of time with science and skepticism popularization, and one of the things that the anti-science people will do is to false flag videos constantly. So it's actually dealing with false flagging a copyright violation is something that people have explained how to deal with. So there's actually YouTube videos on that get flagged, but you usually watch them, they get mirrored a lot. And if you're not, you know, your YouTube channel takes a long time to grow, and you know, if you lose it, you know, it's a real bummer. And you know, they don't have the time to check out every one of these claims. So you know, it is important if you ever get flagged, you know, get out there and take a good look at how to fight that, because it's a constant problem. I mean, and even if you know, you got some band that's jealous of you in your own neighborhood, they'll flag your stuff.
Right.
So learn how to deal with that, because that YouTube channel is, you know, that's your YouTube channel. It's hard to get it. It's hard to get your subscribers back. You know, even if you got almost the same name, it's really, really. I've watched people have to rebuild channels from scratch, and it just sucks. So protect your channel as much as you can.
That's good advice.
That's probably a whole show onto its own, really. You know,
flagging
all that kind of stuff.
flagging video is awesome. Or false flagging a false flagging video is awesome. Sorry.
And then you do have band members violating copyright, right, John?
No comment. Fifth Amendment. This is me behaving for a change.
But it's
basically what it came to is we had a member who left just kind of out of the blue, and he's in the video, so he put it up on his channel without bothering to, you know, contact the videographer who's, you know, on screen right now, and just, you know, basically just lifted it and reposted it as his own. And that's something that people that are doing DIY music are going to have to be aware of too, is the possibility that, you know, when you break off a project, you know, work out those deals, because otherwise you're going to run into problems there.
so Peter and Joe, have you guys had any issues with either fans or someone else making off with your content?
Well, sometimes they steal a CD out of the box. They steal a CD and they've taken the disc out, but you know, we're the type of band that we truly will give it away. If you really want it and you don't have the money, we'll certainly give you one. So there's no reason to steal out of our box, but you still see it, you know.
A targeted distribution.
We've never had any copyright issues, except kids that travel around. We've been a band 20 years, so you hear kids go out west. They get to California and they say, "Oh man, I heard your song on the radio," but how can you tell if that's true or not?
Sure.
People have said it, you know, but I've never seen any proof of it. So.
Well, now I got to do a cover of one of your songs.
Yeah, you know, and covering people's music, I think is fine because I cover people's music. I try to always say the band's name when we play the song, and we give them credit in the album. But we cover lots of obscure things that those bands never got any national success, and we're covering them, and you know, we're not giving them any royalty money or anything, but it's all part of the game, you know. So if you covered us, we'd be proud.
Yeah. Well, you know, the thing about DIY music is get it out there and get it heard.
Yeah.
You know, for a while, music was such a commodity that pretty soon they kind of stopped worrying about music and they were much more about the bottom line. And I think Pipe can explain kind of what happened there, how that all came to be. You know, but there was a point at which that it was all about the bottom line. It didn't matter about the music. They put out a recording of the dial tone and, you know, try and sell it.
Yeah. Yep.
Taylor Swift released a 3 seconds of Static, and it was #1 for what, 4 or 5 days?
Yeah, exactly.
I call BS. Did that really happen?
Yes, it actually happened. It actually was higher rating on iTunes than her new album.
I call absolute 100% BS. I've edited myself. That's unbelievable to me.
I'm with Tony.
The one thing
that
I'm
makes
picking
me
up
so sad for humanity. Like I'm literally like my heart is broken right now that would even happen, and it makes me want to go home and yell at my preteen daughters because I'm guessing that they're involved, and so I'm probably going to ground them for this.
Yeah.
One thing that I'm getting from all of you is that, and it's really refreshing to me, is that you're not interested in music for the fame and the fortune. You created this object that you play, and you want others to hear it, and that's more important to you than anything else. Peter and Joe, that's especially as long as you guys have been playing. That's awesome that you still have that attitude to this day. Do you find that a lot of artists, especially smaller artists, still have that attitude?
No.
Yeah, most of the people we run into are kind of looking to be, you know, if not rock stars, at least, you know, working musicians, I guess. I mean, nothing wrong with that. I can't fault anybody for wanting to make a living at music. But
They want to make a certain amount per show, and they won't play certain venues because they're not going to make that. But we like to play any venue that'll have us because we have fun anytime we go out. And I like to say, if it had ever been about money, we'd all died of broken hearts years ago.
Yeah.
we would not have been a band for 20 years if we ever, you know, that's kind of what's kept us playing together, is the fact that we were only doing it just because we love music, you know.
If it had been about business, you guys wouldn't even be friends anymore, you know?
No. And if we'd ever been forced to tour, somebody would have been hurt in the first week, I think, you know.
Sure.
I have anger issues, I must admit. I used to drink a lot. I don't drink anymore, but you know, I think they would have had to tow me along in a little cart all by myself back there. You know, I could yell at everybody and no one would hear me.
Oh, I'm not riding the equipment trailer again. I've done that.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't willing to either, so.
I'd like to
rack.
make enough to put more back into the show, you know. I mean, what we do is so over the top. My life goal on stage is to make Rammstein's Pyrotech go, geez, that's a lot of fire.
Yeah.
And, you know, fuel ain't cheap. We go through quite a bit of propane a show, you know, so.
Wow.
Yeah, John's bands, their show is not indoor friendly.
Not unless you have a really tall steel roof
Yeah,
without
yeah.
sprinklers, because yeah,
No,
we do. I mean, we're not even a normal band by most people's standards. We're performance art for most people, because we don't have a lead singer. We've got a dancer who does fire dancing and you know this kind of stuff, and so you know what we're doing doesn't really translate to the normal old media of, you know, here's a cassette of us, you know. You kind of have to see what we're doing to get the gist of it. So for a lot of DIY people that are doing something outside the box, that's, you know, YouTube, like you said, is really a great venue for that.
Well, if we bring props, they're usually the opposite. We bring them. I make a lot of crap out of paper, so, so it's kind of the opposite of fire. But we,
it's cool.
Okay,
I mean,
so mental note, we don't do combined shows.
yeah. So out of paper, you can make a large thing that doesn't weigh much, and it doesn't cost much to make. So you can make a paper mache pretty easily, you know.
And then I could set it on fire.
Indeed. We should do a combined show.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
So
It'd be
Aaron,
like
I wanted
Burning
to test.
Man, you know.
Oh,
go on,
sorry.
go on.
Yeah, that was well played. Aaron, I wanted to, before the show is able to wrap up, I definitely wanted to pester you a little bit. You were telling us about Reaper earlier, and I'd like to hear a little bit more about what that is and where it came from, sort of the history on that.
You know, when I was at Vintage, people would approach us to, you know, use certain software, and it never felt like it was built by anybody who'd been within 20 miles of a recording studio. And later on, I started using. I really enjoyed Sony's Vegas. Back then, it was Sonic Foundry's Vegas, but now it's Sony Vegas. I really liked the workflow, but there was a lot missing from it, and so I spent, I think, 12 years looking for a coder. No, 8 years maybe. I had some ideas on how to just kind of hack Vegas a little bit, and we had a bunch of starts and stops, you know, some Linux guys, the whole running the coder gamut that you usually would, and then I ran into Justin Frankel, who is absolutely amazing, and he took anything. Yeah, even like it's like you would read your mind, and pretty much you're just making a program that we wanted to use, and then it turned out that other people liked using it too, which was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
We were both actually pretty much from Arizona, but we didn't meet in person until I had to mix an album at Cherokee Studios in Los Angeles, and that was like Reaper .78 or something. And right there in front of the studio staff, he was coding like as fast as you could hammer randomly on the keys. He's making this new routing for Reaper, and it was just the most amazing thing to see this guy, like, you know, this is the Yngwie Malmsteen of code. I mean, he's just hammering these keys, and usable code is coming out. It was the weirdest thing, and everybody there is a slack-jawed. And then we had an absolutely complete replacement for a patch bay. I mean, it was a patch bay with pan and gain and phase controls. I mean, it's the greatest patch bay ever. And you know, routing is always such a big deal in or it used to be anyway. But he really was able to just, you would think it and he would make it happen. And I think after that, people really said, oh, you know, this, you know, the picture of me using Reaper is a laptop screen sitting on top of a Trident A in Cherokee's room. So we're not using any of this, you know, bajillion-dollar analog console that I used to love so much. We're using it as a volume knob, basically. We're still using the control room output, but it was just the computer, and everything else was just running straight through there. These were George Augsburger designed rooms, so that, you know, we had awesome monitors and stuff, but this Trident A with beautiful automation and everything was just being used as a volume knob and a stand for my laptop screen, and that made people take it a little bit more seriously. Then I took pictures of things we weren't using. There's like this Avid setup and a 2-inch tape machine sitting on the side, and making a big funny deal of hanging my beanie on the 2-inch machine instead of using it, and so same red beanie.
And that's still actively worked on too, right?
Oh yeah, constantly. It's I mean, that was one of the big deals at first. Was all these different people wanted different things. We're like, you can't be all things to all people, but you almost can. They don't. They constantly take ideas, and you'll see new betas sometimes a couple times a day, sometimes a little less. But it used to be that you didn't go a week without a pretty massive update. We used to go to the trade shows, and if people left, it's totally incriminating, whatever. But if people left their computers unattended, we'd install Reaper on them. So Windows arcade console kind of looking thing, it was all Steinberg stuff, and we had these Reaper USB flash drives that had the little logo thingy on it, and you just stick them in the computers. That's terrible, but it worked.
That's awesome.
So some guerrilla marketing right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Piques my curiosity.
Yeah, and Aaron had the Reaper Jeep too, which that's up for sale, isn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's nothing to do with it in Hawaii. This whole island's paved. It's kind of a bummer. So I'd like to see it either go back to Arizona or just some crazy Jeep lover take it. But
But it's a good viral marketing thing. If you got a band, slap your logo on your vehicle.
Yeah, and those machines are cheap. There's the UPS down the street from me. Even here, you can get a pretty cheap vinyl cut out. So it's not a bad thing to do. I mean, I would constantly. This is coming from the freestyle BMX world as well, where you really got to make a lot of noise. So, if I had access to a vinyl cutter, man, that's what anything I can do. Self promotion constantly.
Vinyl's on the rise too.
Oh yeah, the other kind of vinyl. The round kind of vinyl.
Well, that brings up another point. So I'll take it back to you, Joe and Pete. What do you guys do for promotion? How do you promote your band, or do you actively promote it?
Not so much.
Passively promote it. Yeah.
Passively promote.
We put the gigs up on Facebook. We just had some new promo shots taken at least. We haven't done that in years, many years.
We put all our effort into writing and recording and playing the music out, really.
Sure.
All right, gentlemen.
But Joe could be James Hetfield's stuntman, and that's a good promotion gig, right?
I always thought that I was like him, but no one else has ever said that to me.
It'd be a great promo gig, mostly, except for that getting set on fire thing.
Right.
And there goes John back to the fire, and we have actually burned up an entire hour. You guys have any links or social media links that you want to share, Joe and Peter?
We're just on Facebook pretty much. We had a friend of ours kind of cobble together the beginning of a website, but it, beyond what he did, it hasn't gone anywhere. Pretty much just friend us on Facebook.
Okay, Peterhead himself on Facebook.
Himself.com.
Okay.
Peterhead on Facebook. Plain old Peterhead. But PeterheadHimself.com.
Yeah.
How about you, Aaron?
I have the never finished pipelineaudio.net that I add stuff to sporadically here and there, and I haven't added much to it lately. But I used to have my Don't Get Jacked blog about marketing myths in the music industry. So trying to move that over to my site right now. But that's what I really try and focus on is keeping people from buying just stuff they don't need. Just keep a big open door and worry about the size of the door. Don't worry about what it says on the box,
Cool. Super cool.
Hey, John.
I was actually going to plug Don't Get Jacked. I was actually going to plug Aaron's Don't Get Jacked blog. That's good stuff. Incantations Band, I think, on Facebook. Phoenix Rising Fire Arts Academy is our other main site, so you can find stuff there too.
And then, Anthony, you've got something to pimp. Something to Power over Ethernet?
Yes, so Power over Ethernet is the newest show over at AV Nation, where they have gracefully let me extend my presence a little bit, where we're talking about networking in the AV and control space and just how big networking has become, Ethernet and wireless, the whole shebang. We've done 2 episodes so far. I'm pretty sure they're probably going to cancel it because we've had a hell of a time trying to keep our language at a reasonable rating. But it has been a lot of fun, and I've had some super, super smart nerds on there. So definitely worth taking a look at avnation.tv. Look for the Power over Ethernet show. They've got a bunch of other good shows as well. I don't want to talk down there because there's a lot of good stuff. Or you can find me on Twitter. I'm at TonyNoOne.
All right. Thank you, everyone. This has been a great show. I've learned a ton. I had no idea that things have changed as much as they have. I was last in radio back in the 80s, and that's about it since then. So thank you, Peter and Joe with Pitchfork Militia. It was great having you guys. Pipeline, it's awesome as always. And John, again, thank you. Everybody, have yourself a great night.
Thanks. You too.
Thank you.
We've got another episode. It's good.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AV Nation.
This is AV Nation.